Hello my lovelies and welcome to today's video in which I have got some Sims 4 playing in the background, some gameplay. I've been really enjoying it of late, but really the content of this video is an excuse for me to talk about some movies and some TV shows that I've watched. I'm kind of late coming to this one. You guys know I kind of do a quarterly wrap up of movies and TV shows, but this is for the period of August, September and October, so I am a bit behind. So it's given me an opportunity to catch up and get you guys up to speed with what I've been watching, what I'm recommending, what I don't recommend, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and start. Oh, before I do start properly, I do have a letterboxd which I put everything and anything on, movie related. And if I don't talk about something because it don't have a lot to say, but you're interested what I did generally, like rate something maybe, then check that out. Follow me on there. So for August, September, October, I'm going to start off with the TV shows that I watched during that period. Of course, starting it off with August, in which I watched 2 shows in completion. The first one was The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window, which I gave a 4.5 stars. This was so much fun. It's a satire at all the thrillers that was being released over like the last, I said 5 years, but honestly probably more towards 10 years or so. But despite being a satire, the plot was so good. It follows an unreliable main character who drinks too much following the death of her daughter and breakdown of her marriage. Her career as an artist is failing miserably, and she struggles to find passion in her life anymore until she spots new neighbours moving across the street from her with a gorgeous single dad she wants to get to know. I don't know why I stopped watching with 1 episode left, because I was watching this like at least last year, maybe even the end of the year before, but I polished that off finally and thoroughly enjoyed it. After that, cartoon, very gory one. This is an adult cartoon called Invincible, season 1, which I gave a 4 stars. Basically a brutal portrayal of superheroes in our world. I would say it's akin to The Boys in tone, but far grittier if possible. I guess there's much more they can get away with and create when it's digitally done maybe. There were so many times I had to stop watching because it took things too far for me to enjoy personally. But that aside, it's a great show with fantastic characters, action and twists. Gliding into September, I only watched 1 show in completion, and that was Beef. But oh my god, although I only watched 1, it was a standout show for me. 5 out of 5 stars. And I'm going to be honest, I wasn't expecting to be so immersed in this. My other half had put it on and it kept pulling me out of my book. So my brain decided that, okay, we're going to watch it together. Anyway, Beef turned out to be extraordinary, incredibly layered and complex, with in-depth characters that were so unlikable, but at the heart of it just trying to live. We got a glimpse at the wealthy and the poor divide, generational trauma, difficult home lives and challenges in the workplace. And by the 3rd to last episode, I was stunned by how the trajectory transformed from a dramatic comedy to a heart-wrenching, dark and depressing narrative. It left me reflecting on life, and I'm left stunned at how a comically blown out of proportion road rage between our antagonists Amy and Danny turned into the in-depth unfurling of life that we got. The last 2 TV shows I watched were during October, and the first of those last 2 were Behind Her Eyes, which I gave a 5 out of 5 star. This was a fantastic thriller with a little more than you may expect, about Louise who gets entangled in the not so perfect relationship of a husband and wife. The new doctor at her work turns into an affair by night, whilst by day she's besties with the other half. It was a lot. The characters were all complex and layered, which is something I love in my thrillers and my dramas, doing awful things to each other, and the manipulation was so intense my jaw was dropping at every avenue I felt. The direction of the story took a complete different turn to what I was expecting, and I thought it was a really interesting addition and tool piece to move the story along. I can see how some people may find it too odd or far-fetched by the end, but I personally love the direction it took, and it added so much more to my enjoyment. I'd be intrigued to see how that particular dynamic was written in book form, being adapted from the novel of the same name by Sarah Pinborough. The title makes so much sense now. The last show that I watched, Apologies, it wasn't in October, it was in November. This was Agatha All Along, which I was really anticipating, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The twists in this was fantastic. I loved the layers of deception and complexities. The Witch's Road song was beautiful in all its many forms, and the true origin created for it was absolutely emotional. Agatha is such a complex character, so many faces to her that I didn't even know if she ever truly knew herself. I loved all the actors in this, the stylistic choices, and the plot. It was a great series all in all, and it's basically, if you didn't know, a follow up to WandaVision. So I did end up sneaking on a little cheeky November TV show there. I hope you don't mind. I'll be doing that again for the movie portion, which we're about to dive into now, because I completely forgot that I also combined November movies to my August, September and October movie list. Anyway, starting with August for our movies, I watched Run Rabbit Run, which, oh my gosh, seems like such a long time ago. The premise is an unsettling and eerie psychological horror about a single mother's secret coming to light and the daughter that makes her confess. The music for this was absolutely perfect for adding the right tone to the atmosphere, and the colour palette felt so cold and uncomfortable, also boosting the unease that was speeding its way through. It was a quiet unfolding sort of storytelling, but the pace of it worked wonderfully for the story that was being told. Next up, Mora, which is a short horror movie by Grimoire Horror on YouTube. This one I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Trying to find a way to bring the money back in, our main character artist has resorted to strolling through the darkest AI prompts, searching for a new urban legend in Mora, a grotesque figure of a woman lurking within the most twisted generated images. This was horrifying, and being a longer run time of 12 minutes, we really was able to get more of the story slowly pulsed out. The atmosphere was wonderful, the body horror really disgusting, the content utterly disturbing. It was a fantastic horror short. Another short, this time by Alta on YouTube, was The Doll Maker. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. We're following two grief-ridden parents who get a doll made of their recently departed little boy in this psychological horror. The plot was really unexpected in this one, and although the acting was a bit meh, the twist was certainly entertaining. Back to mainstream horror now with Baghead, which came out this year, I do believe. I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I've been wanting to watch this since it released, especially with the folklore aspects and vibes I felt that it had. I did find it to be entertaining, but it was very surface level kind of horror, and I was hoping for much more exploration with the character of Baghead herself. Nevertheless, it was a decent watch, but probably one I wouldn't rewatch in a hurry, and even now speaking about it months later, I don't have the finer details stuck in my head. Alien Covenant is up next, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This one slipped my marathon somehow. I recently, well, I say recently, it was a good couple of years ago, I have no concept of time, watched the whole Alien and Predator universe, and somehow I missed this. I love how the ship's system was called a mother, and it was voiced by Sigourney Weaver, the mother of the franchise. Michael Fassbender's dual character acting was absolutely amazing. The way he made the slightest facial changes, as well as the obvious accent shift from Walter to David, was mind-bending. What a fantastic actor. And the playing out of both personalities was wildly different. This must have been a demanding movie for him to act in, and it was really impressive to see. I was soul shattered by the end. All the second guessing and twists left me exhausted mentally, but my gosh, was it fantastic. There was so much depth, so much twist and action. It was awesome. I would have benefited from watching when I was in the heart of my franchise marathon, as I had forgotten some parts of the movie beforehand, but overall it was a great watch. And following through with that swiftly to the latest release movie, Alien Romulus, I went and watched this in September, and I gave this one a 4.5 stars out of 5 stars, of course. This was phenomenal. The slow building was much appreciated, and I feel like we got to know our characters and create a better depth of connection towards them. The aliens in here felt even more terrifying than before, and for the first time I've noticed how erotic their design is in nature. I might be late to the game here. Did anyone else notice the slow panning to the oozing phallic and vulva shaped attachments? I didn't know what that was supposed to do other than make me feel even more unsettled, but it sure worked. The story is pretty standard for the Aliens franchise, and at this point what really makes the story is the characters and the delivery of the alien. Both were really well done in Romulus, I found. I was terrified and absolutely attached to all our characters, especially Andy, oh, my favourite. Something about him just made me want to look out for him, and it was such a fantastic film overall. Another new movie, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It was the perfect ode to the original movie. This had full-blown cringe and amazing 80s style music with a lot of quirky design choices and the wonderful and weird scenes that the original was known for and we all love. The original cast of Winona Ryder, Michael Keaton and Catherine O'Hara was the nostalgic kick I needed, and the casting of new actors such as Jenna Ortega brought breath of fresh air to this dead, haunted world of Beetlejuice. I'm so glad they alluded to the strange age gap and nastiness of Beetlejuice, because Beetlejuice having Lydia's 15-year-old photo on his table was creepy as hell, in amongst everything else. Really enhances that lack of morality in his character, shall we say, as well as lack of mortality. Back to the new characters. I really enjoyed the majority of them, aside from Dolores, whose storyline was a little bit unessential, and also Wolf Jackson. He was very much caricature and a kind of comic relief, but a bit too much. All in all, though, so much fun. Kicking it back to a film from the past, 1990s Lord of the Flies, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. I had read the book maybe some point this year. Again, my concept of time is lacking. But anyway, I really enjoyed this adaptation. I think I liked it better than the book, as I managed to have a better grasp of the themes, being able to see it play out visually. This was a dark and gruesome bout of chaos, and it reflected the concept of structure failing fantastically. Another new movie, back to the cinema we go with Speak No Evil, which I gave a 5 stars. I went into this movie not knowing anything other than it had James McAvoy in it, and I think this was the best way to go into the movie because it was one of the best movie experiences I've actually had. With the title, I would have assumed something to do with demonic horror or religious horror, something like that. But what we have is a psychotic domestic thriller, escalation to pure evil proportions, showing the duality and depravity of human beings. The acting and suspense was fantastic, and the development of the story was paced out in such a way that the tension was always edging. I love how slow moving it was to start, but there definitely was an off feeling lurking in the sea of suspicion. Overall, a stunning, incredible, visceral movie. It's time for October movies, and I tried to do a lot of creepy things, even though I tend to watch that all year round, but that was definitely my highlight going forward into this month. So, of course, creepy? Yeah, sure. Hocus Pocus 2 is what I kicked it off with, and I ended up really enjoying it. I gave it a 3.5 stars. So much silly fun, loved all the music and the over-exaggerated acting. It was just a silly, goofy time. The end credit scenes reminded me of the School of Rock, and yeah, Hocus Pocus 2 got me in the spooky feeling for October. To something now that was super horrifying, I guess, maybe, but not the same tone at all as Hocus Pocus. And that was Terrifier, the first movie. First time watching it, I gave it 2.5 stars. Now I can rest assured knowing where these memes are coming from. Super silly, super gory, kind of fun, basically torture porn. I could have given or taken this franchise, but because I saw so much about it, I persevered, and I ended up enjoying the second one a lot more. Night Teeth. I gave this one 2 stars. Disney vibes, but without the Disney. I blame Debbie Ryan. This was a pretty flat movie, but I couldn't stop watching. It made me think that it was trying to have a similar effect as movies such as Bright, for example, but it just didn't pull that off and was more cringy than anything else. Impressive cast, but not much else. It just fell flat from there. If you love Disney originals but want an older cast of characters but keeping the same nostalgic cheese, you might love this. A movie that sort of matches its name but kind of still invokes conflicting emotions within me is The Disappointments Room, which I gave a 2.5 stars. It reminded me of like a mixture between The Others and The Secrets of Crickley Hall, but about halfway through it felt like not much had really happened. In saying that, there were times I really appreciated the slower moving progress, especially for the use of the gothic atmosphere and eking that out with the tension. This was emotionally driven with some dark and terrible subjects, but it all felt sort of surface level and lacked any true depth. It was enjoyable, but would definitely melt into the background quickly, as it certainly has talking about it now, in comparison to other movies that definitely do it better. Following that, The Crazies, which I gave a 4 star, and honestly, I found this to be an unexpected gem of a horror thriller mashup. I wasn't expecting to like this so much, or to have our antagonists be zombies like in action. This was a unique take on the zombie origin, chemical warfare, and survival themed movie. The characters were engaging and the plot immersive. It was truly bleak and dire, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. What does that say about me, I guess? Skins, 3.5 stars for this one. So, this is a strange collection of stories set in a world where people share numerous deformities, looking for acceptance in an unforgiving place. The prosthetics, though extreme, were really well done, and I think that its over the top nature and design drove the point home a bit deeper. I definitely think that was its intention anyway. I've seen this movie described by Eric R on Letterboxd as a weird mashup of Coraline and Wes Anderson, and I totally see that. The imagery and themes were really odd and uncomfortable, yet the use of pastel colours were so pleasing to the eye. It felt straight out of a Melanie Martinez K-12 movie. I felt troubled by this film, and it's easily the strangest movie I've ever watched. Yet at the same time, I know that it will be a movie that I'll think about for a long time. I'm not sure if I would say I actually enjoyed it, having watched it in two halves, weeks apart from each other, but I was smiling at the end, and I came out of the experience thinking about what had transpired and pondering over what symbolism there was, etc. I probably didn't really fully get it, but as I say, definitely a strange, unique, and interesting watch nonetheless. Okay, next up, a new Netflix movie, The Woman of the Hour, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't as captivating an execution as I was hoping it to be. In fact, the pacing was too slow for me, but the story itself was hard hitting. It's left me wanting to watch a documentary about the women and girls the real life serial killer murdered. So, in fact, although this particular dramatisation wasn't super intriguing to me, it's brought these crimes to my attention about a serial killer I hadn't known about and makes me want to look into it more. So, it is based on a true story about a woman who matches with a serial killer on like a blind date show. Think Cilla Black's Blind Date, and it goes from there as she kind of uncovers the darkness within him, basically. Next up, I went on a journey. My colleague has some very obscure and interesting movie tastes, and he always has a lot of interesting references that I don't always pick up on. And so I was like, dude, give me a list of movies to watch. Ironically and humorously, the first movie on that list I watched was Bumblebee, and he said he chucked that in there as like a little red herring. I was none the wiser. I was kind of like, huh? As in like Transformers, but I didn't say anything. Stuck it on, first time watching it anyway. Absolutely loved it. 4.5 stars from me. I haven't really been into the Transformers movies, so that's why I hadn't really watched this. I think I watched maybe one of them when they had the Linkin Park music and Shia LaBeouf in them, maybe the first one of those, but other than that, that was it. But yeah, I really did enjoy this far more than I was expecting. In parts, it did feel like a bit of a cringy Disney movie, but for the most part, it was a moving and plot-filled, action-packed movie that had me nearly in tears at scenes. Why did they have to make Bumblebee so cute and dog-like? I think it was the Iron Giant vibe that got me emotional as well. Anyway, I really like Charlie as our main character, or our main human character, shall we say. Her character was a little too try hard at trying to be edgy, not like the other girls trope, you know. But beside that, she has a great background and character arc, and I really enjoyed her on the screen, I guess. The only thing that kept ticking the back of my head was that it didn't really scream 80s. Other than the good music and the antagonist's school bully hairdo, I didn't really think it was 80s setting, and I'd forget, and then suddenly I'd be like, oh, why is their hair like that? And then be pulled into the fact that, oh yeah, it's supposed to be set in the 80s, you know? Anyway, I think it was only really insisted for the timeline to work rather than an actual stylistic or plot related decision, but nevertheless, enjoyed the movie. Back on it with Terrifier, and this time Terrifier 2, and you can see a vast improvement in my enjoyment as I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It was so much better than the first one in my opinion. It had a vision, followed a more in-depth linear storyline, playing into the comedy horror without feeling just like torture porn, and felt like it had a decent budget. The acting and twists were still over the top, but it felt intentional and it worked so much better, sort of playing on maybe what people had complained about before. I don't know. It was long though. Quite a bit could have been cut out, pun intended. Following that, The Invitation is another movie I watched via Netflix, and this one I gave a 4.5 stars. This was so much fun. I loved our two main actors playing the roles of Evie and Walt. This was a fabulous modern take on the classic gothic vampire genre. I love the sneaky little Dracula reference, but I mean, it's not super subtle when you consider the whole vibe, but you know what I mean. The first kind of like beginning parts felt like an older Disney vibe again, but I think it was assumptions based on seeing Thomas Doherty, famous for, like, Descendants and all of that. And it definitely came out into its own after I got into it. It wasn't just vibes, the plot was great too. Kind of gave me like Meghan Markle Princess Diaries, but it certainly handled atmosphere exquisitely. All in all, fun, seductive, horror-esque gothic, and I'm glad I ended up pushing to watch it in time before it was removed, sadly, from Netflix. Okay, we're going to go into November's movies now. The next two movies are two more off of the list that I got from my colleague. So there is The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which I gave a 3 stars. This was another, as I say, of the movies my colleague suggested to watch, and it was interesting. I feel like Tim Burton definitely got stylistic inspiration from this and movies of similar ilk, especially in the design of the corpse bride, which was cool to notice. It also looked very stop motion, which was interesting to experience in a live action movie. I guess because of how they reeled the film or something? I don't know. I never studied media, but that would be my guess. I hadn't watched a silent movie like this before, aside from Nosferatu, so I liked the novelty of this viewing. The plot was entertaining, and I liked the way it unravelled in the acts, and I actively was trying to guess what would happen, so it was very immersive. Anyway, this was an experience. I liked that it was broken up in acts, but generally can't say I loved it. The scenery and tones was interesting visually, and I'm happy to have watched it, but it's not something I would quickly watch again. Although the more I think about it, the more I feel appreciative of how it could be studied and respect it as being considered one of the first horror movies. Another movie on that list was The Secrets of Nim, which I gave a 4 stars. I don't know how I missed this from my childhood, but it was so much fun. It was so much more moving and deeper than I was expecting it to be plot-wise as well. I really enjoyed the story, and although I found the old school acting very dramatic, especially Mrs. Brisby, and amusing, the story itself was well explored and had me hooked. It was a great little animated movie. Another new horror to the cinema world was Immaculate, which I gave a 3.5 stars. I actually watched this one via Netflix, I think. It is definitely a slow moving plot. Got about halfway in and didn't actually think much had really happened in this one. It's a story I had thought was originally a part of the Conjuring series, but was quickly proven that I was incorrect there. But anyway, this was well acted and it was an immersive movie, very full of gore. It's not entirely what I was expecting, so that's probably reflected in my rating, but the ambience and unsettling tone of the discoveries in the nunnery was spot on. It was a brutal, gory, religious horror. Then went to the cinema and did like a double movie date. We first went and saw Venom, The Last Stand, which is the third movie in the Venom franchise. The third and probably last movie. They tend to do things in threes, don't they? And this one I gave it 3 stars. I'm not going to lie, by the final showdown, which I felt happened upon pretty fast, I was near to tears by how emotional the relationships between Venom and Eddie had grown, their sacrifices, and just the whole lethal protector situation. Eddie calling for his buddy was the bit that nearly made the tears pour out, but other than that, this was your typical silly type of slapstick fun action movie. Nothing super special. Then after that, I had a little bit of a wait and then went straight into The Wild Robot, which I was so excited to see. I gave this one a 5 stars. I finally got to see it in the cinema. I think I was right at the tail end of when they were finishing up showings. But anyway, I knew it was going to catch me sobbing. I mean, the trailer alone had me in tears already, so I knew what I was going to be in for. But what a beautifully emotionally driven movie this was, about found family, belonging, protecting nature and doing the best for others, but not as a detriment to who you are. There were some characters missing from the book who I'd love to have seen, like the kindness of the female goose that shows Roz all about motherhood, and the squirrel best friend to Bright Bill. But other than that, and some other choices I noticed being removed or moved about for the movie, this was a fantastic tribute to the book. It was absolutely wholesome, and I'll be thinking about it for a long time. And lastly, to wrap up this video, is Alita Battle Angel, which I gave a 4 stars. 5 years it took me to finally watch this, 5 whole years, and I can't believe it ended on a cliffhanger. I really enjoyed this. Originally I was put off due to how uncanny Alita looked, but I think they tweaked her design after some feedback, possibly? I don't know, I might be lying. Anyways, I really wanted to see this in the movies, but never got around to it. You can really see the manga inspiration from the actions and the drama of it all, which to be honest was a bit cringe on the screen. It just didn't translate as smoothly as one would hope. But anyway, this was a fantastic action-packed movie with a great storyline. Sort of made me think of Pinocchio at the start. Invented dad, not fully human kid, being led astray but wanting to get to the magic kingdom, etc., etc. The romance was a bit meh, and sometimes the acting was overdone, but overall I really did enjoy it. And I don't know, hopefully they put some works into creating a sequel eventually. I don't know. The cliffhanger! Anyway, that is all for today's video. Thank you for spending some time with me in The Sims and hearing me yap about the movies and TV shows that I've been watching over the last couple of months. Let me know what you've been watching, what you'd be recommending, any suggestions for me to check out on the old TV box. And yeah, thanks for watching. Catch you later.
Stop! Boom! Amen! Mansu